Good morning. I'm Dr. Christine Crawford, and welcome to another episode of YPO Presents. I'm a Harvard-trained epidemiologist and former second-generation woman-led McDonald's franchisee. I serve as an advisory board member for Phoenix, Verify, and Cyberwoven. I've been a member of YPO for about 5 years and am the inaugural chair of YPO's Diversity and Inclusion Hub, where we're seeking to upgrade the understanding of global leaders around diversity and inclusion. On this International Women's Day, we are excited to welcome two global leaders for this conversation, Dr. Mary Gunn and Deanna Daniels. We'll be discussing their leadership journeys, how the role and expectations of women leaders have evolved, what all of us can do to support women leaders, and much, much more in this conversation. Dr. Mary Gunn is Chief Operating Officer of Health Decisions, a 30-year-old biotechnology and diagnostics service provider in R&D with a focus on women's health. She has 25 years of experience in private and public biotechnology, medical device, and contract research organization companies. Deanna Daniels is the founder and CEO of Tinkerlink, a social marketplace for vulnerable communities to get jobs and get paid. The referral-based app is aimed to help the unbanked and underserved to be included in the mobile money revolution. She is also chairwoman of Kronos Group, a multinational firm providing enhanced unified communication systems to consumers, corporations, service providers, and operators across the globe. Welcome, Mary and Deanna.
Thank you, Christine. Very happy to be here.
So before we get started, I'd like to remind all of you watching live to please ask questions in our chat. Also, if you're not following us already, please follow so that we can be sure to notify you and include you in upcoming conversations on YPO Presents. So let's get started. So ladies, if you could please give us an overview of your perspective as a global leader on how your journey has evolved and changed, and how the role of women and what role gender has played in your journey and how it has evolved as well, especially across the globe. So we could kick off, if Dr. Gunn, if you would start, please.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Well, I am passionate about access to innovation as a solution for the problems in healthcare faced by so many women and men across the world. I was elected to my first board position at Brown University 25 years ago when I was in medical school, and since then, my pursuit of health and scientific innovation has taken me across the world, from the United States to the UK, Germany, Switzerland, China, Singapore, developing medicines, vaccines, and medical technologies and providing them to more than 100 countries. Gender has definitely had an effect on my career trajectory and leadership style, in that I've always had to be overqualified for everything that I do. And this is because of the tool that is used to exclude women from leadership has not changed in 25 years. And it is this: you are not qualified to be the president, CEO, or chairman because you do not have experience being the president, CEO, or chairman. And that sounds very reasonable. Well, the president of the United States has never had experience being the president of the United States before he became the president. So is he not qualified? And the guy before him? Should all inexperienced presidential candidates just not be allowed to run? This mechanism of exclusion is applied mainly to women, especially minorities. The idea that you can't possibly join the club because you've never been a member of the club. That's what I call the clubhouse excuse.
Thank you, Mary. Deanna?
Yeah, listen, I've been in telecommunications more years than I would like to admit. And definitely telecom is a male oriented and very focused industry. I started when I was actually pretty young. I worked 2 jobs to pay my university, and I did realize that meritocracy actually existed. I did work hard. I basically, use all my free time to kind of like advance that corporate ladder. But I did realize that one of my opportunities on that moment was that I was single. I didn't have any kids. In those times, actually, people get used to ask you, are you going to get married soon, or are you planning to have kids? And my situation, or my complete advantage at that time, over more than 25 years ago, was like, no, I'm single. I'm not have any kids. I'm focusing to my job. I have this commitment and everything. Today, we don't even ask those questions. It's just even illegal. Think about like what type of things that you usually ask today to the people that you want to employ in your company is completely different. But in those times, when you think about like what if gender actually play a role in the advancement of your career, well, yeah, because as Mary said, we needed to have probably 3 times better experience, 3 times better knowledge of the market, and 3 times more time than any male character around us, so we can advance. In general terms, because of the hardship of growing as a female executive in this very male-oriented industry as telecom, I guess that has made me more resilient, more to have more endurance in order to do the things that I have accomplished. Should I haven't been there, probably my career might be different, but this has shaped the way that I am, I have shaped the leader that I want to be. It has shaped the type of leader that I am today and I want to be in the future.
So, given that clubhouse mentality that you referred to, Mary, have you seen that change at all? Have you seen it get better? Have you seen it get worse? Because there's certainly been times where we've discussed it more, in particular in 2020 and in the years previous with Me Too. So what has your industry grown or changed at all, for better or for worse?
Well, my industry, unfortunately, has not changed very much. 25 years ago, the biotech and medtech boards were about 85% male, and they are still about 85% male. 25 years ago, the board of medical licensure and discipline, where I interned, had only 1 female. And I remember they were reviewing cases of sexual assault brought on by different women against a single particular male physician. And they voted not to discipline him. In my 25 years of presenting to the branches of the US FDA, called CBER and CEDAR, and other health authorities around this world, I've always faced large, overwhelmingly male panels of PhDs and MDs, also about 85%, who make decisions on whether or not life-saving treatments and diagnostics for women should be approved or not. I am very much hopeful and want to be wrong about my experience. So I actually contacted the FDA to ask them how many women are on their team in CBER and CEDAR. And their response was devastating. They don't count. The women are not even counted. And we were told that they have no obligation to count. So the intent for change isn't even there. These gender disparities in positions and institutions of power greatly negatively impact the health and lives of women.
You know what, Chris? I guess that you cannot improve what you do not measure. So if you don't establish a goal on diversity and inclusion, just like Mary is saying that they don't even count, then how can you measure that you're doing any improvement? And this goes across all industries and companies. So, and I know that many people are not fans of quotas, but the truth is that only by establishing measurable actions, that is the only way you will see an impact in your organization. So while the first step is to recognize that there is a problem, the second is to realize how to solve it and how it can go from the education, but also more into actions to establish criteria of percentages across all the organization. Because to have an organization with developers that are Indian and all the HR department are women, or all the Latinos that you have in the company are in the service. That doesn't mean that you have a diverse team. That doesn't mean that you're even working towards inclusion. Set the demographic targets not only across the employee base, but also about the leadership and the board, and even about investors. Take the money from the people that you really believe that they are diverse. So if you start actually making accountability into this type of issues, is the only way that we're going to be able to see a whole different levels of inclusion in the organization. This is kind of, I guess, that the main steps, factors that we should approach.
So Janet on LinkedIn shares your frustration as an HR professional about the lack of changes that she's seen in her own career in the last 25 years. Are there any innovative thoughts or programs or initiatives, or what things have you seen that do work, even if it's in your own companies? How have you all addressed this issue within your companies that you lead?
Well, in my case, Chris, what I can tell you is that definitely, the opportunity to try to not only change the language actually of how do we hire, because in so many cases, we don't choose correctly the language when we are including women, even if those positions are typically for men. That is important. But as well as the bring up, the topic, as I said, recognize that the company might have an issue is an important aspect. Mary, what do you think in your case?
Well, Diana, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you brought up some great points. And we have some similar approaches actually at my work. I mean, first of all, according to the World Economic Forum in 2020, the economic gender gap will take 257 years to close. So we're not even talking about gender equity here. We're talking about just achieving basic gender decency. I always say to my team that it's not enough to say that the doors are open. To be truly inclusive, you have to provide access. Right. You have to send the bus. First, create a strong bench. I'm very proud to say that at my company, Health Decisions, 72% of the employees are female, and 46% of are minorities, majority African American. Next, we need to encourage, enable, and develop. So we, at my company, implemented individualized development plans and set targets for each employee to ensure that they have the support and transparency to appropriately advance. Inclusion, Diana, I couldn't agree with you more, won't happen in an HR department silo. Yeah. The fundamental culture of an organization has to be transformed, and that starts at the top. So I'm also happy to say there that our C-suite and corporate executive team is majority female.
So ladies, what support do you need both from a board and as you serve as a board member? How do you support these initiatives in that capacity?
Mary or Beth?
Diana, if you go ahead.
Yeah. I guess that the type of support that you need from your board of your investors or the leadership is set goals. Set the goals that you are trying to achieve while including a more diverse culture organization. I do believe that there are actually positive things that happen today. I don't want to say that everything is bad or that we haven't advanced. Yes, there's a better access to the jobs. Jobs that maybe 20 years ago were not supposed to be for a women. Today, there's this democratization of access to the jobs, and this is something that I'm very dear to. In the company that and one of the startups that I run, we do this. We democratize the access to jobs, and not only for women, but also like for marginalized communities, for vulnerable people, and so on. But today, it doesn't matter if you're a female or a male or non-binary. We all have access to the same opportunities as of today. There's a lot of improvement, we are better than 20 years ago for sure. The workspaces, companies, bosses are more understanding of the scenarios of everyone. I believe that there's a clear line on what a boss is supposed to do and not to do, what to say, what to imply. I guess that women in general in the work scenario, we are more informed and we are better empowered to exercise our rights. And then on the negative side, probably, is that the older and younger generation, we're not speaking the same language, and younger generation, obviously, they want to have a more direct impact and definitely want to have this diverse culture. So I guess it's a beautiful opportunity for companies today into how to embrace each other and at the same time embracing this diversity and inclusion into our workforce and companies, investments, and impact projects.
So Mary, do you have any thoughts about what, and not just your boards, but your industry in general could do to support these efforts?
Well, I mean, policymakers talk inclusion a lot, right? But at least in the case of the FDA, right, in order to have credibility, they need to clean their own house first. Start by counting the women. And from a board perspective, the boards can diversify themselves more, because I've actually had several of my employees come to me and say, it's hard for me to imagine how I can advance when the people at the top, none of them look like me. Mm-hmm. So this part really is the support that we need from leadership and the boards and policymakers.
Okay. So there's been a lot of discussion around how the pandemic has disproportionately affected women in the workplace, with there being additional burdens of caretaking, schooling, a lot of the types of jobs that we as women often hold, the expectations. So how has the pandemic affected you both personally and professionally?
It is interesting, Christine, because indeed, 2020, I guess that we all were waiting to finish. When is it going to end, right? But at the same time, it shows us that work can be done differently. Remote working is possible. And it comes with the challenges, because, I read this quote the other day saying, the work of the future is remote working. And then it signs a millennial with no kids, So if you're a millennial with no kids, yes, remote, working from home is the future. But when you're a mom and then when you have kids also to attend at home and they cannot go to school because you're in confinement, that's a different challenge. So I guess that one of the key features that the pandemic has showed us is that we need to be flexible. We need to provide flexible opportunities to our workers, flexible opportunities to the talent that are helping us achieving our goals, because this flexibility is what it is needed today. If we are about to work from home, or if we are set up to come back eventually to the office, it is important that we maintain the flexibility in our workforce so we can embrace those changes that technology is allowing us, like right now, communicating, via Zoom, looking at us in this amazing opportunity. But at the same time, then giving the chances to these women, men, non-binary, everyone that can be included in this situation, to work in a more flexible environment.
And Mary, biotechnology, with you all being lab-based and bench work, and so you all don't have necessarily the flexibility, but how has this pandemic impacted your workplace?
Oh, so in my industry, the majority of us do actually work out of offices. Oh. So this is biotech and pharma. Corporate, it's very white collar, I have to say. And what's really changed for us is that the personal and the professional have become more mixed. A silver lining is that my industry has learned to prioritize mental health and recognize that personal well-being is intrinsically linked to professional performance. It is now more normative to say, I must take a short break to pick up my child from school or attend to a family need. And this change in normative value should not be allowed to go away when the pandemic is over.
I totally agree with you, Mari. Yeah.
It's very true. So Carrie on Twitter wants to know, how early can you start prepping the bench? So is it about early education in STEM, or should it begin at the entry level in workplace? And at what stage can businesses help earlier? So Deanna, if you'd like to share your thoughts on.
Yeah, I do believe definitely education is to start early in general terms. We need to help our youngsters to come with this. And like I said, many of them, as I just previously told you guys, the millennials, the new Z generations, I don't even know what generation is now, but they come with that chip in their mind, right? They want to be part of something greater. They want to be inclusive. They want to belong, but at the same time, they want to belong to something special. And then it should start at entry level, I believe, also on the workforce. It is important, as I said, although it's better now than 20 years ago, but it is important that everyone has the same access, the same opportunity, the same type of jobs, and the same expectation that they can climb up that ladder in order to achieve better results.
Yeah. Mary, do you have
I agree with you, Diana. It has to start early. I mean, in medical school, more than half of the students are female. And yet 68% of oncologists are male. 87% of cardiologists are male. And even though 70% of the people who suffer from pain are female, 82% of pain specialists are male. So you really need to start at school, right? Start hiring people out of school and create your bench. But then you need that piece of transparency that I raised before in terms of how people advance. What I mean is, it's not enough to just say, oh, these roles are open. You need to say, well, how does one get from here to here? How do those dots connect? Yeah. What skill sets are needed to fulfill the requirements for that position? And for that process to be transparent and managed by HR, so that it's not perceived or it's not done in such a way that someone is promoted because they are favored, right? Yeah. So those elements need to be in place.
So Ivan on LinkedIn asked one of my favorite questions, favorite questions. So thank you, Ivan, which is, what are the most common mistakes that men make? And how can men simply do better?
I will say, I don't know about you guys, but I will say mansplaining is a typical one, in the boardroom when they are trying to explain you something that you usually already know. I would say that for fellow men that come to in this situation is, first of all, please don't be afraid to interact with women. Be true to yourself, and that hopefully that true to yourself is that inclusive person that I know that you have in there. But mainly also do a little bit of research. Who are you talking to? Try to leave those bias outside on the door. So that will say that for me is the most typical one when a guy abuses the mansplaining.
Mary, do you have any suggestions?
So this is a fun question. So thank you, Ivan. I would say that I find that success and leadership is a socialized phenomenon. And just back to that clubhouse excuse, right? People sometimes would say and use the term lack of cultural fit to exclude someone from the leadership team. And it's not necessarily because that person is not a good cultural fit. It might be that the leadership team is not inclusive, right? So just consider that as a possibility and look at your own comfort level, as Diana said, in socializing with women as peers. So the short and easy answer is surround yourself with women.
It is. And although it's challenging, it is challenging for certain nationalities also. It's in their cultural DNA sometimes. And I'm telling you, I'm a Latina. So I've been working not only in this telecom, which is very male-oriented industry, but I'm also been in the Latin American market. I'm Mexican. So it's sometimes it's difficult for these people to understand that we do not face a threat to their jobs or to their families. I remember I was in a trade show and a guy, I came to him and say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, I'm married. I'm like, what? It's like, what's going on with these people? So I guess they need to start processing this data of we do not bring this threat into their work environment, but we are here to contribute. And this is probably the biggest opportunity that many men may have, that they will, if they try and they really try, they will learn a lot from their female coworkers and members of that table.
And so you touched on it a little bit, Deanna, but if both you and Mary could share a little bit about how that journey looks globally, right? So how in all of your experiences across all of these countries in which you have led companies and workforces, some of the nuances and some of your experiences across the globe.
Well, I guess that, and I keep telling you this, today we are better than 20 years ago. I'm happier to work in any bigger organization or a small organization. I had today meetings with people that even 20 years ago, they probably wouldn't have a meeting with me in the same room. So indeed, things are changing. And I guess that the rhetoric as well is changing. The conversations are changing. Yes, there's a lot of room of improvement, and that room of improvement, it will happen whenever we start counting, as Mary says.
Mary, did you have any thoughts about how your journey as a woman was different in different countries? Or
yes, absolutely. So part of my training is as a lawyer as well, and in law, especially in international law, you have normative law, meaning what is normal, what is the precedence for certain things in that particular social context or that legal context. And this has a tremendous amount of impact because what is cultural is something that is constantly being shifted and defined by the society, right? So my experience in working in the United States has shown me that there are certain normative values when it comes to women in leadership roles, especially in the medical profession and as a minority. Fast forward to Europe, and there are differences amongst the different countries. There's a big difference between the Germanic countries, such as Germany and Switzerland, where I worked, versus the UK, versus Spain, versus Eastern Europe. And those normative values, as Diana said, are changing. And a lot of this is coming from the ground up. So I would say that I wouldn't, because my experience is very specific to healthcare, I would say that in my specific case, I found that it was easier to navigate the institutions in the United States as a woman and as a minority versus Europe, substantially more so. Whereas when I went to Asia, my race was not a factor because I was part of the majority. Right. But then gender became more of an issue. So it depends on the particular person, and I have a very specific experience because of my race and my gender across the different cultures.
Okay. All right. And we have a question from Aquilin on LinkedIn, and she wants to know, for organizations that refuse to measure, so if it is race when applicable, ethnicity, gender, how have you helped them understand the benefits of these metrics? How do you have these uncomfortable conversations around counting?
I guess that I also said it before, you cannot measure what what you don't count? How can you ask your sales department to sell better if they don't have a quota, right? Or how can you increase your market share if you don't know what is the size of the share? Right. So I guess that there are very specific examples about the benefits of having a diverse and cultural environment of work. That are many reports out there that you can search and share with your management. But I guess that the typical piece is this, right? If you don't count, you don't measure the results. You cannot improve it.
Okay. Yeah, I fully agree with you, Diana. People aren't motivated to change unless they see that there's a benefit to change. That's why change is so hard. And the benefit of diversity, how that's articulated, has changed across time. Because now there's measurable data to demonstrate that companies with diverse boards perform better financially, for example. And being a psychologist, I can say that you want to have a more balanced perspective in your decision making, because otherwise you accumulate a substantial amount of risk in how you conduct business. And that might work, but for some period of time. But if that type of thinking, that type of herd thinking, when there's a lack of diversity, is wrong, then the risk that your organization is exposed to is enormous. So to achieve a better balance and to mitigate against those types of risks, especially tail risk, it's to the benefit of organizations to diversify. It's the credo of many organizations in terms of their business strategy to diversify their business lines. So just take that same mentality and apply it to decision making.
I think that's a great point. But it is this conversation about becoming more diverse and inclusive is one that is nuanced and has different layers to it. And Leonie, and forgive me if I said your name wrong on LinkedIn, wants to know, how do you suggest companies deal with the months or years that women may miss due to motherhood, or honestly just being caretakers, right? So the caretaking responsibilities, not just for children, but for elderly, for all of those things that sometimes gender roles have caused us to deal with as women in a different.
You know what, Christine? I guess that on that perspective is not only the fear of many managers that believe that because women has been out of action because of motherhood or caretaking of their family or whoever in their situation, it's kind of less candidate or comes less prepared because she didn't have that experience during those years or months that she's been out of the game. And one of the things the other day I had actually this discussion with a really good friend of mine, where I do agree that actually motherhood prepares many women to be better managers, to tell you the truth. It's a way where no man actually can right now. There's no training for men to go towards the experience that a woman goes through when they are moms or they have to take care of their families. It's a crash course in project management, right? Definitely. So it comes back, women that has been out of corporate or out of the business doing other stuff, it comes back with a different knowledge that I personally had seen in many of the women that I work with today. And that they come back with this knowledge where they can apply different reasoning, better problem resolution, better time management, multitasking at the same time that they are producing better efforts because they need to go home and do stuff. So I guess I will personally challenge whoever that believes that a woman coming back from maternity or that she took years off just to take care of their kids will come back with less knowledge or less resources in order that to apply in your company. give them a chance, because they will surprise you. I'm positive about it.
Mary, do you have any thoughts?
I would say that whatever company doesn't provide the support that their employees need to be successful, whatever manager doesn't do that should be fired. So you're a bad manager if you do not provide the support and enablement and engagement that allows your employees to be successful, because you're not running a successful organization. And I can say also, show me the data. Show me the proof that people who go on maternity leave or have children negatively impact the growth of a company. Because in my case, when I had 2 children, I was the GM for a company where all of my predecessors were male. And we had been in the region for 25 years. I was able to double revenue during that period in a way that all of my predecessors in the 25 years before me was not able to achieve. And those are the facts.
So Tiffany wanted to hear not just about how industry and, as you said, Mary, managers are responsible for supporting this, but do you all have any thoughts on what the family needs to do to support women in leadership? So how can your families, your extended families, support you on this journey of leadership?
I do believe, Chris, that definitely families needs to be a great supporters of female that wants to go in leadership, because more people need to chip in that help in order for that woman to be successful in a career. But at the same time, I guess that the old times, like when I started, when it was kind of like a benefit that you don't have a family, then you can succeed faster in your career. That mindset from corporations should change. I guess that the companies obviously need to give a better time and resources, and as Mary said, the resources for these people to succeed in their jobs. Families at the same time, they need to understand that, especially partners, right? That in order for both partners to be successful, there need to be also commitment for both of them in order to advance into not only the relationship, but also the relationship with your corporation. So it is a shared responsibility indeed for the family and also the corporation and the employee itself.
I fully agree with you, Diana. Those are some really great points. The only thing I could add is I remember when I was in college and I had some male roommates, and we had shared responsibility in terms of cleaning, right? Maintaining the common space and cooking and things like this, except their standards were much lower than mine, in that they would leave dirty dishes, dirt tracks across the floor, things like this, right? Rotten food in the fridge. So fast forward to the question with regards to how families can support. I would say raise your standards so that the standards are aligned as to what do we want? What are our shared objectives? What are our shared goals as a family? And how do we achieve that together? And once that is aligned, I think you will find that there's a lot more equitable distribution of work in the home.
What I wanted to tell you, Mary and Chris, is that I was raised in a family of working parents. My mom actually was working. My father was also working, and I went to how do you call it, childcare, when I was 45 days old. And every time that a friend of mine asked me, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should bring my kid to daycare, and say, listen, I'm a daycare child, and I promise you I'm normal, So I do believe that sometimes is also the fear, like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my kid outside with. Well, this is part of the resource systems that we should take advantage of. I'm not encouraging everyone to leave their kids in childcare or whatever, but what I'm trying to tell you is that if you have the opportunity to have a resource, that being your grandma that is going to take care of your kids, or your mother that can give you a hand, or just putting them into school in an early age, try that too, because that actually might give, resources to your own kids to be more social eventually in life. So I'm a childcare child, and I'm telling you that I'm okay. I believe so.
Well, and I think what our conversation has highlighted, how in order to really help women, it's what I think is assume their rightful place in all of these companies, that it really is about policy and industries and individual leaders within companies and managers and your families. And so it really is everyone working together to not just have this Women's Day, but Women's Year, decade, century, right? And so 2021's those International Women's Day theme is choose to challenge. What is the one challenge in particular that you are passionate about overcoming, Mary?
Well, I have to say, Christine, women die and suffer needlessly because they don't have access to healthcare innovation. My career-long passion has been about getting people access to that innovation. In fact, I helped start a trade association to enable that. And this is really important because, for example, one woman dies every minute from breast cancer. The survival rate is 99% if breast cancer is detected early. Did you know that there's a low-cost mammogram-like test that you can do right at home to detect breast cancer and malignancies early on, and that it doesn't even require prescription outside the United States? But women, especially Black and Latino women who die at higher rates in the United States, have no access to this early, affordable detection. So this is something that has to change, and this is something that I am working on.
That's great.
Deanna, your challenge that you are passionate about.
Yeah, well, I share with Mary the passion of giving access to people. This is what we do in the companies. In Tinkerlink, we actually help people to be included in the labor and financial market. And in Kronos, we help people to get to have access and to be more connected on the telecommunication side. But what I have decided this 2021 to challenge is that status quo, that a successful startup founder has to be a guy in his late 20s or early 30s, graduated from an Ivy school, usually white, handsome. I believe that I want to challenge that status quo, because you can be a female founder over 40, and why not even 50, with a lot of experience and willing to make things happen. We are doing that. We're helping many women to become also their own entrepreneurs, their own sources of their financial destiny as well. And many of those women that are 40 without a job, that believe that their career is over, I want to tell them that my goal is to help them to change that outcome. So I'm working on that.
Well, no doubt, given your brilliance and expertise and passion, you all are impacting both. And so as a member of the global community, thank you. And thank you for encouraging me as a woman who is in transition in her late 40s. So I appreciate all that you all are offering me with this conversation. So our last question is really a personal reflection on your journey as industry leaders. So as members of the larger YPO community that includes more than 30,000 members in 142 countries, what do you feel are the benefits of being part of an organization like YPO? What can it do for founders, entrepreneurs, and other business leaders?
What I can tell you can do for that it has done for me. I'm still a young member of YPO, and in the past years that I've been a member of it, it has been an amazing ride. I have met amazing women like you, and also amazing leaders around all the world. One of the most powerful things that I love from YPO is the forum. And forum is those conversations that you have like in a very confidential and peer-to-peer environment. And one of the best advice that I got there actually was very short time ago is, and I want to share with you today, is look for the no's. It helps you to look for the rejections. And I believe that this is important because we always learn from the no's, from the rejection, from why I didn't get this, from how come I'm not getting that, why I didn't achieve this. So this is one of the things, for instance, that YPO has helped me realize is how do I work in a different way to achieve better results. And I have a beautiful tribe behind me of female and male founders and presidents that I always can bounce back, get great ideas with them.
Thank you. Mary?
Well, I mean, I can't say enough good things about YPO. I think it's essential for me to learn and get ideas from my peers, right? To really move the needle in my brain. It helps me become a better person. And in becoming a better person, I become a better leader. And that's what YPO provides. I mean, it allows me to be engaged with the Christines and the Dianas of the world and become a more well-rounded and more thoughtful leader.
Well, are there any last thoughts, any pieces of advice that you could tell Deanna, that you could tell an 18-year-old Deanna? Mary, go ahead.
Yeah. You know what? I actually got this question asked, and I told them, make sure you do not burn all the bridges. I have done it. So please do not burn all the bridges. But in that process, do not settle for less. Ask for the corner office that you want, that. Ask for that double dip salary increase because you deserve it. And please never stop learning.
And Mary, what would you tell an 18-year-old Mary?
My advice would be to start with a celebration, to start by celebrating the success of women and look at which women you want to look up to, right? And for women to surround themselves with other successful women, and especially women leaders, and follow in their steps and use them as a roadmap. And for those leaders to be generous with help and support. I mean, YPO, again, is a great organization for this. Women need to be insistent, as Diana said, insist on being given responsibility for their potential and ambition instead of only for their experience. Don't sell yourself short. And my advice for men and women is to stop using the clubhouse excuse to exclude women.
So again, thank you all so much for all that you have shared with us today, your thoughts around access, what we as a global community, again, to make this world better, to make our companies not just better, but also more profitable, right? And so as you all said, it's all about access. And we thank you all so much. Thank you for such amazing questions. LinkedIn, you killed it. We had one or two from Twitter. But we also want to encourage everyone to please continue to follow us so that you can join us in future conversations from YPO Presents. Thank you.
Thank you so much.